Alrighty, welcome to round. Welcome to the. We are going. Welcome to the round. Sorry about this. I'm a little bit nervous, but welcome to the result. This is the round of 64 update for Toon Madness. If anybody remembers what we were doing, this is the actual bracket. But first, this is the actual bracket for the round of 64. So let's see who's all advancing and by vote. We're going to start with by vote first, and then we're going to do by tiebreaker if votes are tied or no votes have been cast. We're going to start with we are going to start in quite literally we're going to be starting with we're going to be starting in the video game region of the bracket. Let's go to the 116 matchup. Let's pull up those votes and see what happens. Let's see. I can go. Let me see. I'm just going to go to my actual page and see what. Give us a second. But this is. The round of 64 has really. The round of 64 was a really good round, I would have to assume. It was a very good... I got some good votes in. I do notice there was some technicalities with the last video where I didn't record my voice. So, and I think the last two videos were kind of like that because I couldn't figure out how to use the microphone, but we will... I think we did do good on that, so we're going to the posts. Let me go to the posts and scroll down. Good old ESPN. So let's start off with the obvious one here. It looks like by one vote. We're gonna keep scrolling till I reposted these a few times. As you can tell, wow, that's gonna be a fun one to debate. There is a lot. Give me a second. So. Sorry about that. So, it looks like we're gonna start with the, in this regional, we are gonna start with, in this regional, like I said, all the regionals, we're focused on the video game regional right now. That was a big region, and I will say this, it is a lot of work to do these videos. So, one of my favorite things is the 8th seed is advancing. So the 8th seed and 7th seed are advancing to play each other. So Spyro won the 7th, one out in the 7-10 matchup. Halo won out in the 8-10 matchup. So what's going to happen is, and I'm going to write this live for you. And then, if I can figure out how to move this. But Halo is moving on out of that bracket. And then we're going to reduce the So that is going to be your... good news is, in the video game bracket, that is going to be your next round. Halo versus Spyro the Dragon. This one was a pretty obvious one from the get-go, just with one vote. It's still a vote. So Spyro's moving on over Fallout. Halo's moving on over Super Mario. And I'm kind of sad Super Mario didn't advance, but I would have also been sad if Halo didn't advance, because these are two OGs of the video game world. So now let's go to wrong bracket. Oh, here it is. So those two are moving on. We didn't get any votes on that one. Ratchet and Clank is moving on. The 5 seed's moving on. So the 5 seed is moving on as well. So give me 1 second. So they're moving on in the bracket as well. So there's some good news there. I know some of these words are a little bit blurry, but and that's just the way over time as I save this bracket, it's going to end up that way. So we do got some movement in the bracket, which is good. Good. Thanks for your votes, by the way. And literally, I don't think we got any more votes. So we're going to start with the 2 seed for 2nd seed. This is our first tiebreaker. So the tiebreaker rules state, and as me as a channel owner, I will, if there is a tie in votes or no votes at all, I will break the tie. So out of the 215, I'm picking Pokemon. Pokemon is one of my favorite franchises, and this is the 215. Pokemon's one of my favorite franchises. We didn't get any votes on it. Final Fantasy is also a really good franchise. These both started on Nintendo. But I'm going to pick with the true Nintendo on this one. I'm going with Pokemon in the next round. So, notice. So, the way it will be listed as, there will be a double star by it. The double star represents tiebreaker. The tiebreakers. So, they will be moving on in the bracket. Over Final Fantasy. I think the way some of this became really blurry is a big problem for me. Eventually, we will work out the kinks on that next year. But for now, this does work. So, that they will be moving on, which, by the way, we will be changing the look of the text to a gray-like text for the teams that do get eliminated. As the day goes, as this video goes on. So those are the teams as the tournament moves on. I'm pointing at them, even though I'm not showing you. As teams get moved on, we will gray out the teams, and that's how it will work. So like I said, double star represents tiebreaker. If votes are not cast. So yeah, let's move on. So Legend of Zelda or Crash Bandicoot. That's our 314. I'm waiting to do the 116 seed because it's going to be interesting. I'm going to pick Crash Bandicoot over Legend of Zelda. I love the Legend of Zelda. It's one of the most legendary franchises of all time. But Crash Bandicoot turns 30 this year. So I would rather have Crash Bandicoot. And if I was voting, I'd pick Crash Bandicoot in a heartbeat. So they're moving on as well. We may have to make the text a little bit smaller for it to fit. That is not what I meant to do, by the way. So, actually, 12 might actually fit on there. So Crash Bandicoot is moving on in the... So Crash Bandicoot's moving on in the tournament. Our next one that didn't get any votes is right below that, which is Animal Crossing versus Elder Scrolls. I love them both, but if I was voting, I'd vote Elder Scrolls in a heartbeat. And I'm going to double check the votes real quick before I actually say that. I love Elder Scrolls. I love Skyrim most of all. It's one of the funnest games to ever play. Animal Crossing's fun, but it's literally... It's not really the fact if I was voting. If I was voting, I'd vote Elder Scrolls. Self-explanatory. Really self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and gray this one out real quick. We're going to gray out Animal Crossing real quick. And of course, Elder Scrolls is moving on. I'm going to put that right there. And remember, the double star represents, and the double, and like I said, the double star represents Tiebreaker. So, the double star represents Tiebreaker. I would be using a single star, but that's explained in the next bracket when we get to this comic book side of the bracket. They're moving on. So they're moving on. Let's go ahead and get back into where the votes were tallied. Dragon Age or the Horizon franchise. I know more about Dragon Age than I do Horizon, so I'd vote Dragon Age in this instance. So Dragon Age is... So... Dragon Age is moving on. They will play Ratchet and Clank. And so it's basically a couple of I would consider upsets. None of them, there hasn't really been an upset other than maybe Elder Scrolls. And like I said, I'm going to be graying out the teams as they get eliminated. That way I don't mix them up. Crash Bandicoot advances. And now we get to go to, because it's further up, we get to go to the 116, which will be, as I keep scrolling up, as I keep scrolling up, we're going to start with Grand Theft Auto versus Sonic the Hedgehog. I think the biggest debate is, to me, which is better, Sonic the Hedgehog or Grand Theft Auto? They're both really good. I'd vote Sonic the Hedgehog in a heartbeat. Because I love Sonic, I love the lore, and it just would fit a lot better than PlayStation over Pokemon. It just fits more, to me, it fits a lot better. So they're going to move on in the bracket. So your bracket for the next round, which is the round of 32, is set. The winner, of course, the winner of the round of 32 will advance to the Sweet 16. So here is your next round matchups. Pokemon at Sonic the Hedgehog versus Pokemon. Crash Bandicoot at Elder Scrolls. Ratchet and Clank at Dragon Age. Spyro against Halo. So now we get to move on to a bracket that... Oh, before I forget, I probably should gray out Grand Theft Auto real quick. So, now the bracket that didn't get a lot of votes at all, but we do have an upset in this round thanks to y'all's votes. So we're going to start with the one. We are actually going to start. Actually, I figured out how to do this. Never mind. I can just do this. To make it look like... Okay, so I figured out how to make it a little bit brighter. That way we can see the names. Just tap on it. Okay. I did figure out how to brighten that up, as you can tell. This is that bracket. Remember, Garfield advanced in the last round. Which, speaking of which, I might as well do it to the other side of the bracket. Now that I figured out how to do it. Make it look a little better as we click on them, because they fade out over time. Yeah, so remember, tiebreaker rules do apply. So we're going to start off with the biggest upset in the comic book in this bracket, which is this regional, the sci-fi region. The biggest upset in this round. And it was the only thing that got voted on. Oops, wrong bracket. In this bracket, this was the only vote. And I kind of see it right about here. So Garfield, there is a true upset by vote, which means Garfield will be advancing to the round of 32. So they'll be advancing to the round of 32. So they will advance, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. They will advance to the round of 32. They will face off. And then, of course, this one we will gray out, or we will gray that one out. They advance. So, I'm not even going to show the vote. I'm going to double check the votes on all of these. But I didn't get many votes in this half of the bracket specifically. But it happens sometimes. It just happens. And I'm going to keep scrolling down. So, One Piece, the anime series versus Teen Titans. 2 versus 15. I don't know much about One Piece. I know it's a good series. I've heard some good things about it. I don't know much about it, so I'd go with Teen Titans in a heartbeat. So, if I was voting, tiebreaker rules apply. Teen Titans is moving on. There would be a 16 vote. I mean, it happens that way sometimes, where... So, remember, double star represents moving on. So, Teen Titans is moving on against Garfield. One Piece is been eliminated by tiebreaker rules, of course. So remember, the double star represents being eliminated. Let's go double check. And then, of course, X-Men versus Star Trek. I know a little bit about Star Trek, but I love X-Men. I'd vote X-Men in this instance. So, like I said, my vote counts more. Like I said, due to tiebreaker rules, I will vote on the next. I will vote basically, like I explained. If there is a tiebreaker, if no votes are cast, or it's an equal amount, 50-50%, tiebreaker rules apply. So I will advance teams via tiebreaker rules. So X-Men is moving on in the bracket. I might want to make that smaller. So Star Trek, sadly, you've been eliminated via... So they've been eliminated, they're moving on. Transformers versus the Avengers. Robots versus superheroes. And I'm going to double check the votes real quick. Nobody voted on this one, so tiebreaker rules apply. And I will keep saying that when there is a tiebreaker involved, so... Sorry if all the repetitiveness gets repetitive. Transformers versus the Avengers. I'm picking Transformers. I love the Avengers movies, but... recent events kind of have turned me off from them. So, we will have another upset in this bracket. I mean, not really an upset, so... Transformers Through no fault of their own, Transformers in this bracket is moving on. I'm going to make this one slightly smaller so it can fit on the bracket. But yeah. So yeah, they're moving on. They'll take on X-Men. Captain Underpants for Dragon Ball. I actually know a lot more about Dragon Ball than I actually do about Captain Underpants. That one's actually kind of a shock that I actually know more about Dragon Ball. It's actually one of the early it's got some great lore. Looking for the Dragon Balls, some of the best fighting ever. I like Goku. He's cool. But if I had to pick, I'd pick the 12 seed in a heartbeat. Because Dragon Ball, no offense, Dragon Ball just has cool lore. It's a good series. So let me grade that out real quick. So, Captain Underpants has been grayed out. Dragon Ball. I'm going to make this shrink a little bit. Dragon Ball will be moving on in the bracket. They will be moving on in the bracket. Just by me whistling that tune, the Powerpuff Girls, you already know if there is a tiebreaker in this one, which I think there is too. Dragon Ball's, the Powerpuff Girls are moving on, which there's a tiebreaker. So, Powerpuff Girls are moving on. Like I said, I am focused on teams that got votes first before we move on to the tiebreakers. So this is literally fighting crime, trying to save the world. I wonder if... Okay, we're gonna... No, 8's the only way this one's gonna fit on the bracket. But yeah, Peanuts has been eliminated by let's just... Honestly, they've been eliminated by tiebreaker. All the teams that I'm eliminating right now, this is under tiebreaker rules, so... This next one's easy. Justice League. No offense to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I love the Turtles. I love watching clips of the classic Justice League shows. And, of course, the best. They have some of the best lore, too. So, Justice League is advancing to the next round of the bracket. No, sorry, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Justice League is moving on. So... Justice League is moving on in the bracket. And then the next one, Dogman versus Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I'm going with my childhood here. I'm going to be going with my childhood if there is a tie, which there is. There is a tie in this one. There is a tie in this one. Dogman, I like that. I grew up with the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If I was voting in this tournament, that's who I'd vote for. Wrong button again. So this bracket's going to be an interesting one. 9. So remember, the double star represents tiebreakers. So if nobody voted on it, they will move on via tiebreakers. I know this one's hard to read. So this is going to be your matchups for the round of 32. Winners advance to the Sweet 16. Garfield versus Teen Titans. And of course, as you go down, the double star means... like I said, double star means tiebreaker. So, Teen Titans is moving on, X-Men is moving on, Transformers is moving on, Dragon Ball is moving on, Powerpuff Girls are moving on, Justice League is moving on, Diary of a Kid's moving on. Now to quite possibly my favorite part of the bracket, the TV animation bracket. So this is the current state of that bracket. And before I forget, I'm going to grade this one out real quick. So what does this bracket look like? Who's all advancing in this bracket? And this one's actually quite possibly my favorite bracket, because we did get 2 upsets in this bracket. And I say upsets, they're not really upsets. If you're fans of them, this is not, to you guys, this isn't an upset. To me, this is kind of an upset. So, if we were going by the actual tournament, we're going to start off with the 2nd seed first. Scooby-Doo is advancing. So, Scooby-Doo is advancing via vote. So, like I said, we're starting with the advancements by vote. So Scooby-Doo is moving on in the bracket. Bob's Burgers has been eliminated. I'm sorry. They have been eliminated via vote. Let's go ahead and check the next one. This one is a clear upset with 18 votes. Family Guy will be going on over King of the Hill. That one actually kind of was a shock. I mean, both shows are really good. But unfortunately, Family Guy is moving on. I might make this a little bit bigger. So they're moving on in the bracket. They're moving on in the bracket. Let's see where we're at now. Where are we at now? This one actually I thought was gonna be close. This one wasn't. SpongeBob wins out by an overwhelming majority. And this one had the most votes out of all the voting ones. So, out of all the ones that got voted on in the tournament. 48 votes are in on that one. SpongeBob SquarePants advancing. Sadly, I should be shocked on that one. But I really ain't. So SpongeBob is advancing. So SpongeBob's advancing in the tournament. Now we do have one whole matchup actually set. And I saved the best for last. And here's an interesting tidbit about actual March Madness, at least on the men's side of the bracket. Only 2 16 seeds have ever advanced over the 1 seed. And we got actually 3 that actually advanced. Because we have the 3rd one. I'm about to reveal the 3rd 16 seed that actually advanced. And that is The Simpsons over the whole entirety of Cartoon Network. They advance by 94% of the vote. So we have our matchup set. We have one matchup set already in the 2nd round via votes, and that is gonna be hold on a second, I gotta reduce this. Ooh, there we go. And that will be The Simpsons continuing their miraculous run from the first 4. They will play Scooby-Doo. Now, we get to find out who plays Family Guy, who advances out of the 5, 12, 6, 11, and 7, 10. So we're going to look at votes on this one. We're going to scroll down. We're about to start on the next one here in a minute. We're going to go upwards. 7 versus 10. Looney Tunes or Phineas and Ferb? Looney Tunes. If I was voting, tiebreaker rules, Looney Tunes. And if you want an explanation on tiebreaker rules, I have a post on it on the post page of the Hogan Productions page. They're going to advance. They're advancing. They're going to advance in the tournament and take on SpongeBob. Phineas and Ferb, sadly, has been eliminated. That's been grayed out. So, who's next? Who's next to under tiebreaker? Under the tiebreaker rules. Jimmy Neutron or Futurama? Jimmy Neutron has some humor that goes over its head. But I love Futurama for all the math all the math and science jokes that are in it. And technology jokes. I'm going Futurama. If I was voting, I'd vote the 11 seed Futurama. Oh. So, I like kind of making mistakes when I'm typing. So, they will advance. They will advance over... They will advance in the bracket. Who will they take on? Who are they going to take on in... Who are they going to take on in the bracket in the next round? Over Tiny Toons and Animaniacs or Very Odd Parents? I'm going Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. I think how funny both of those shows are, and I'm a big fan of Steven Spielberg. I'd vote Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. So, where are we at? So they will move on over Very Odd Parents. Oh, I just realized something. That doesn't even fit on here. I'm surprised nobody pointed that out. So they will advance. Let me blank. So I am sad that none of the Nickelodeon shows advanced, besides SpongeBob, but I don't mind. Because I did it by the teams that have been voted on, I eliminated that. And our final matchup, 4 versus 13, South Park versus Rick and Morty. This one's a toss-up, but let's see if anybody voted in this one. And nobody did. I'm picking Rick and Morty. I love South Park. Don't get me wrong, but Rick and Morty, I feel like would be a good... With how irrelevant, how out of pocket that show is, and how much... Again, this goes to the same question with Futurama. I love the science. I love how science fiction-y and funny it is. So, I'm gonna go with Rick and Morty. They will advance and take on the 14 seed. The good news is some of these teams I will be using next year regardless, but Rick and Morty is moving on. And that is good for... I'm a big fan of that show anyway, so it's kind of cool to see them advance. It's kind of cool to see them advance. So your round of 32 is set. The Simpsons versus Scooby-Doo, Family Guy versus Rick and Morty, Tiny Toons versus Futurama, Looney Tunes versus SpongeBob. Now to the movie animation region. So, this is an interesting region as well. But we did get some votes in this region, and we're going to start, once again, with the votes in this region, starting with the 1 seed versus 16 seed. I mentioned 3 out of the 4 1 seeds aren't moving on. Despicable Me, however, is... they're moving on in the bracket. They're moving on in the bracket. They're going to move on in the bracket by vote. Our next one by vote is actually further down a little bit it's further down in the bracket. It was Zootopia, the 6-11 matchup. So Zootopia will be moving on in the next... they will be moving on in the next round. They will be moving on in the next round. That's a... so Zootopia will be moving on in the 6 out of the 6-11 game. They will fit, and then of course, I think we all saw it as I was scrolling, but the 7-10 matchup, Toy Story versus Cars. Toy Story is moving on. So Toy Story is moving on to the 7th round, to the next round. So now this becomes an interesting one. And let me blank out the teams that got eliminated real quick. So who's moving on in the bracket to face these 3? These are 3 that got votes. So these are going to be the teams on upset alert. And I put that in quotation marks. So first off, we're going to go down. We're going to see who plays Toy Story first. The Lego Movie or Shrek. If I was voting under Tiebreaker, it'd be Shrek. I love the Lego Movie. It's just Shrek is more wholesome. And that will always be the case to me. So... and Mike Myers, come on now. And Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz. They've always had an all-star cast. They're gonna move on via tiebreaker. Let's see. We'll grade that out. So Monsters Inc. versus How to Train Your Dragon. I don't think we got any votes on that one. But I'd pick Monsters Inc. in a heartbeat. And I love Monsters Inc. I love Billy Crystal and John Goodwin. There's a good crew right there. So basically, now when I do post the next round, I will I will put double stars. I am gonna put double stars on the teams that did not get votes in the previous round. That will denote that they moved via tiebreaker, and I will put that in each vote box. So Monsters Inc. is moving on. They're moving on over How to Train Your Dragon. And so now let's... I'm sorry, I started thinking of Do You Want to Build a Snowman? But the next bracket, Madagascar or Land Before Time. I will always pick dinosaurs over talking animals sometimes. And that's Land Before Time's moving on. So, that, and they're just so wholesome of movies. And it was one of the first movies I ever fell in love with as a kid. So, if I was voting, Land Before Time. I'm gonna have to shrink this down a little bit to fit. Because... And you already know by the way I whistled. I already know who I want to advance to as a 314 if nobody voted. I love Peter Pan, but I like Frozen because it's so sweet. Then I'm Olaf. I literally can act like Olaf. Okay, who's the reindeer? Okay, who's the guy in the crazy jacket? That's the fur and all that stuff. Sven. And okay, and who's the reindeer? Sven. Then I just love Olaf. So if I did so yeah, I'm gonna advance just by the fact that I did that. Oh crap, that's gonna be way too small. So Frozen will be moving on over Peter Pan. They'll be moving up over them. So, and so now what we got is Hotel Transylvania or Happy Feet. And this is our final vote. This is the final tiebreaker vote. Nobody voted on it. As much as I like Happy Feet, I'm going with Hotel Transylvania. It's one of Adam Sandler's best movies. Because it's just funny. It's out there. So they've advanced via... So what does this look like now? We've tallied the votes. I'm gonna save it real quick. Turn this off. And see what the bracket looks like. Oh, not that small. Still too small. And here is the official bracket. I think this is still big. But the bracket as it looks now. What's Sonic versus this is the bracket as of now. Actually I might just hit fit the page. Let's see what happens if I hit fit the page. Okay, there is our official bracket for the round of 32. The winners of the round of 32 advance to the Sweet 16. The winners then advance to the regional final, where that's going to be Elite 8, and then the winners of each region will play each other in the Final Four. So, but this is our bracket as of right now. And this is big. Like, it is an interesting bracket for the round of 32. I'm excited about that. I'm looking at it, and it's going to be an interesting one. So remember, in the next round, when I put up all the votes, if you see a double star by it, that means they advanced via the tiebreaker. If you don't see a star by it, that means they were voted in outright. So, congratulations to the teams that either advanced via vote or tiebreaker. And let's get ready for the round of 32. I will reveal who's all going to the Sweet 16 Tuesday night. Or Tuesday afternoon. About Tuesday night around 8 o'clock. So, 8 to 9-ish. Because I have to work that night. I work for a living. It's not my day off. So, but we will reveal them. We will reveal them once again Tuesday night. But there is your round of 32. And then I will go ahead and start posting this, and I will be posting the vote, how to vote for the round of 32 coming up.